Today I'm going to be telling you about my National Youth Theatre audition experience and sharing with you the outcome of my audition. Hello, if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Performing Arts and Me. My name is Millie, I'm a second year musical theatre student, and on this channel I make videos about theatre related stuff, so if you are also interested in theatre or in musical theatre or dance, then please subscribe. Okay, let's dive straight into talking about my audition process for the National Youth Theatre. Please remember that this is just based off of my experience, so it could have been different for other people that were auditioning this year, and it might be different for other people in the future too. So if you are thinking of auditioning, then please read any audition information you get carefully, and I'd suggest checking their website and getting in touch with them if you have any questions rather than just taking my word for things. So my first round of auditions was via self-tape, and the self-tape had 3 sections. So the first section was basically like introducing yourself, the second section was your monologue, and then the third section was answering some questions. The monologue had to be no longer than 2 minutes. And then the questions they gave you 3 questions to answer. For the self-tape there were 2 deadlines. They had like an early bird deadline and then they had like, I guess, a normal deadline. I did mine by the normal deadline, which was in March. In terms of submitting the self-tape, so I submitted my self-tape their platform, which is something called The Hub. Now, from what I understand, in order to submit a self-tape and therefore to audition for National Youth Theatre, you have to be a subscriber to The Hub. The Hub is like an online platform thing. I haven't properly explored mine yet, but I think it has like videos of shows and workshops and stuff, and then it also has bulletins of opportunities and things on there, so it's like a creative hub basically, like an online creative hub. The monthly subscription is £2 a month, and yeah, so through the hub I could then submit my self-tape. I then received an email towards the end of March which offered me a recall, which I was so happy about. The recall is a live digital recall, so it's basically like a Zoom recall audition. I had to book a slot in advance, so they sent out like, I think it was on the email they sent saying like, we're offering you a recall. They sent out like a link for you to book your slot. The recalls took place over about 10 days and you booked like a time slot. I think the slots were about 20 minutes each. There were therefore quite a lot of slots because it was over about 10 days and the slots were quite short, but they were limiting how many people could book each time slot, and it was first come first served. So if you are auditioning and they're doing the same thing and you want a particular day or time, then I'd recommend trying to get on that as quickly as possible. So for the recall, in terms of what we had to prepare, they asked us to prepare a monologue that was about 2 minutes long, and they said that it could be the same as the one that we did in the first round for the self-tape, or it could be a different one. They said that they might give you some redirection, or they might ask questions about your life or journey. They also said that they will ask you questions about yourself and your interests. This was all information in the email that we received, but also on the National Youth Theatre website there was like an audition handbook that you could download with information about like how to submit your first audition and stuff, but it also had some stuff about the recall. And on that it said that you could prepare a song or a poem as well as your like monologue or spoken text. I'm saying monologue or spoken text because it did actually say on the email that you could do a monologue or you could do a piece of spoken text with like a strong narrative element. I think it said something like that. But anyway, so in addition to that, it said you could also prepare a song or a poem, but they might not have time to see it. The email didn't mention the song or poem. However, as a musical theatre student, I did prepare a short song, but they didn't ask me for a song during my audition. Although, actually thinking about it, the person doing my audition, he did ask like, oh, what are you going to be performing for us today? And I just said about my monologue. So maybe if I'd mentioned the song as well, he might also have been interested in seeing that, but I don't know. But anyway, I am glad I prepared one because I did mention to him about the fact that I was an MT student, so there's always that chance that he might have been like, oh, she's an MT student, let's see if she can sing, but he didn't ask me for a song, so yeah. Anyway, in terms of which monologue to do, I wasn't sure if I should do a new monologue or if I should do the one I'd done for the first round. I didn't want them to feel like, oh, she can only do one monologue, so that's why I thought I should do a new one. So I spent the day before my recall preparing a new monologue, but I didn't feel like it was as good as my first one. So I wasn't sure which to pick. I did actually email them about monologue choices. They recommended choosing the one you feel most confident and excited about doing, which for me was definitely my first round one. And they also said that the auditioner that I had in my recall might not have seen my self-tape, but that they would have notes from whoever had watched my self-tape, which might have things like what they would want to direct if they had the chance, etc., like what they'd want to redirect you on. So I inferred from this that the auditioner probably wouldn't have seen my monologue, and that even if they had, it probably wouldn't matter because they'd likely just ask to redirect something or to like workshop it in some way. So given that I was more confident with my first round monologue, I decided to just stick with that. So for my live digital recall, they sent me a Zoom link the day before, and they also asked with that email with the Zoom link for us to join 10 minutes before our slot. I thought that that would mean like, oh, you joined 10 minutes before so that you're in the waiting room and they can let you in on time. But actually once I joined, they let me pretty much straight in. So yeah, just I'd say you might want to be prepared for that in case they do that. In this Zoom meeting there were the other auditionees who were in my slot, and there was a National Youth Theatre ambassador who I think was currently a member, but if they weren't a current member then they'd been a member and they were now an ambassador, but I think they were a current member and an ambassador, and they were there to like answer any questions we had and stuff like that. And there was also the Zoom manager for the day who was in charge of like letting people in and out. The actual people doing our audition were in breakout rooms, and we waited in the main room until the Zoom manager asked us to join the breakout rooms. While we were waiting we could just ask the ambassador questions, and he was really nice and just like answered our questions and stuff like that. Every so often the Zoom manager would kind of like interrupt to be like, oh Daniel, Dave is ready for you now, and then Daniel would go into his breakout room. The Zoom manager also seemed really nice. I was one of the last people from the group of auditionees that were in my slot to go to my breakout room, but even so I wasn't in the waiting area with the ambassador and the manager for very long. When I went into the breakout room it was just me and the auditioner, and he wasn't at all intimidating, like he was really nice. He asked me a few questions at the beginning which I think were kind of just to like settle me in, like, oh how are you, like where are you calling from, that kind of thing. He also asked me at some point, I can't remember if it was at the beginning of the audition or like after I'd done my monologue or whilst we were working on it, but he also asked me at one point why I'd chosen my monologue, which kind of threw me a bit because obviously I had reasons for choosing my monologue, but I hadn't thought about how to articulate those reasons. So that might be a question you want to think about if you are doing this audition. Anyway, so after he'd settled me into the audition, done a bit of like general get to know you, that kind of thing, he then asked me what I'd be performing. I told him. He clarified some things about eye lines, which was really useful because my laptop wasn't at eye level, so that was really helpful because the situation was generally different from like what it would be for a self-tape. I also checked after I stood up that he could hear me and see me okay because I was a little bit further from the camera, so just checking that he could still hear and see what was going on. And he was like, yeah, whenever you're ready. So then I did my monologue. After I'd done my monologue, I think he asked me maybe a little bit about the monologue and or the character and or their intentions, that kind of thing. And then he gave me a bit of redirection and asked me to do a little bit of my monologue again. He said he'd stop me after I'd seen a bit of it. So I did a little bit of it again. He stopped me and he asked me how that felt. This question I'm definitely used to because I get asked it a lot at college. We might have spoken a bit more about the monologue or worked on a couple of other bits or workshopped a few more things or had some more redirection. I can't really remember. Anyway, after I'd finished working on my monologue, he said I could sit back down and he asked me a few questions about myself, which were questions that were quite similar to the ones in the self-tape, so I kind of already thought about them already. And then he asked me if I had any questions and I asked him a question, and then I was done. So then I was done and I left the breakout room. There was actually a bit of an awkward moment there because I couldn't leave the breakout room. I couldn't find the button, even though it's like the same button for like leaving a Zoom meeting, which I've done 50 million times. I rarely use breakout rooms, so I was like, oh, where's the button? Like, anyway. But then I left. I went back to the main room where the ambassador was still there with the Zoom manager. I don't think any of the other auditionees were in there at that point. But yeah, so I was like, oh, so am I done now? Because I think my slot wasn't even over. They were like, yeah, you can stay and ask any questions, or yeah, you're free to go now. So I asked the ambassador a question or two and I left, and that was my audition recall. And then the bit that you've all been waiting for, what happened with the result? So the result came out via email, and National Youth Theatre sends out all the audition results for the acting recall on the same day, which was the 8th of May. Unfortunately, I wasn't offered a place on their course this year, which obviously isn't the outcome that I was hoping for, but I did really enjoy the recall process and I'm so glad that I applied. Also, can I say what a lovely email it was that they sent me saying no? The email had like links to wellbeing support and it had links to other people's advice for getting a no in terms of acting, which I just think is so nice. Like, I think is the nicest no email I've ever got. It also had links to other National Youth Theatre courses or ways you can get involved with them, and it encouraged us to consider applying again next year. I think I might well apply again next year. I mean, I'll see what happens in terms of third year and stuff, but I think I would quite like to apply again next year. And that was it for my audition process. I just want to say a big thank you to National Youth Theatre for the chance to audition, for the recall and the whole like recall experience, which was a really good experience, and also for that lovely email saying no. So yeah, a big thank you to National Youth Theatre for this opportunity to audition, and although I didn't get onto the course this year, I did have a really good time doing the audition. Really glad I applied. I hope you have found this video useful, and if you have, please do give it a like to let me know. And if you want to see more theatre related stuff to do with drama school, all that kind of stuff, then please do subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!